back to the Laziena experience where we're having meaningful conversation with people who help us see ourselves more clearly. And today I am with Andrew, and we are going to explore some really interesting topics. I think specifically pornography. So let's see how much trouble we can get into here, right? So,
Just a little bit.
yeah, Andrew will introduce yourself and tell me and remind me and our audience what it is that you are, who you are, what you're doing, and how you're changing the world right now.
Alrighty, so like you said, my name's Andrew. I'm soon to be 42 in a couple of weeks. I'm a father of two amazing grown boys. I'm a mental fabricator by day and a recovery and a life coach by night. I just started actually working at a sober living home. This past week was my first time, so I'm doing that part time in the evenings now as a way to be able to give back to the recovery community and help be that light for other guys that are in darkness and stuff like that, so and that's really my passion to be like eventually like I'd like to that to be a full-time job, like working in recovery, being a coach, being a speaker,
Yeah.
help be that light for people in that are still stuck in their darkness. I was an addict for 14 years. I lost anything and everything really that held any kind of importance or any kind of sentimental value to me during that time. And for the last 28 months, I've been in recovery, and I've been slowly but surely rebuilding my life, rebuilding my credit. You know what I'm saying, piece by piece, and all that kind of stuff. Rebuilding relationships with my kids and doing a lot of deep inner work.
Mm-hmm.
Not always fun, and it's not always sunshine and rainbows, no matter what people lead, what I'm saying, try to tell you and lead you to believe about that.
Yeah.
There's really a lot of ugly stuff when you start digging down and peeling back the scabs off all those scars and the wounds that you stuffed down and whatever for so long. So, but
Yeah.
and I've done a few podcast interviews. This is another one. This is something that's completely new to me, a new subject we're going to touch on. So this is peeling back a new layer of the onion, so to speak, I guess is a good way.
Yeah.
So, but
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first saw your profile, and I can't remember the details of that, but that's not really the best important part right now. What I saw was someone who was speaking a lot about about your actual lived experience being in recovery from being addicted, and I thought, man, that's what I love to have a conversation with you because I think recovering from addiction is such a journey. It is not easy.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, and I truly believe that, when we have had a journey that leads us to those moments where we're looking at ourselves and it's like, I am filled with regret and remorse, and I I don't know what redemption even looks like. How do I start back
Mm-hmm.
up from the ground? And that's a different kind of journey. I think
For
it's one
sure.
thing to be on a personal development journey or healing journey. It's all a journey, but it's not very often we take that self accountability unless we've hit rock bottom. Now, I'm not an addict in sense of like drugs, but I understand how addictive the brain is, and when how
Mm-hmm.
much we can ruminate, and where all that stuff goes. So tell me a little bit about the addiction for you. Like, when did you first realize that it was impacting your life?
Probably about, let me think for a minute. I started using meth with the girl I was dating at the time in towards the end of 2009 or the beginning of 2010, and it really wasn't a problem. In my mind, it wasn't like where I thought to myself, like, Andrew, you might have a problem here, like, what the fuck are you doing? Kind of thing until probably 2015 or 2016 when,
Mm,
so I was like, 6, 7 years in at that point. And that was, I think, I was the only one working, and I was supporting both our habits and keeping up the household and everything else right. So I think I rather would go see the dope man a few times as opposed to paying some bills, and like the Wi-Fi and the cable got cut off a couple times. And then I remember, because I used to do glass bottle crafts back then a lot too. Like I took all four arts in high school, so I'm very artistic. I had several sketchbooks full of things that I'd done up until that point, and I would paint things like designs like henna designs, paisley stuff like that onto bottles. I would do sports logos and things like that and give them away to like family members and stuff as gifts or whatever. And I made this bottle. It was an old, I think it was an ice house bottle or something. And I drew a guy that was running, and he was holding a meth pipe, and the smoke that was spiraling out, like spiraled out into a big dragon. And I think I wrote on the one side, I think I said, chasing the dragon. Do you think you can chase him? And as I was doing that and looking at it after I got done, I was like, Andrew, like that might be you chasing that dragon, like what's going on here? So that was kind of the start of when I realized I had the problem. I didn't really know that it was really, really bad until I bought a house in February of 2017. And probably when I first got the foreclosure, the first set of foreclosure notices and things like that and warnings in the mail about that house, I realized like it was like, Andrew, what are you fucking doing? Like you are
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? So, and that ended up getting foreclosed. As a matter of fact, 18 months after I bought it. So in October of 2018, the house was foreclosed, and yeah, went through a really, really dark time over the next 6 years before I finally got it clean. So,
Yeah. So along the lines of addiction and realizing that there is something here that I got to change in my life. You've been through some recovery. You've done. I mean, for you to be involved in the recovery homes and along with
mhm,
these guys, you've done the work. You've gone to some steps, right? But one of
yeah.
the things that we ended up talking about when we connected was this idea of porn addiction, right?
hmm
And
Yeah.
yeah, so I want to hear like so we'll start off with like, what is the one thing, like if you could shout it on top of the rooftop for everybody to hear about this, like what is your take on it?
About porn.
Yeah.
I mean, don't fucking get involved in it because that's a long, deep, and dark road. Like, really, I mean, it'll take you some dark places, and it fills you with a kind of shame, guilt,
Hmm.
regret, like a lot of negative things that, like, I mean, addiction's bad. Like drug addiction was bad enough for me, but then you throw that on top of that. And looking back now and realizing all of the things that I was really involved in and stuff, like it just, yeah, it just multiplies because that's just one more thing, right? And it steals just as much from you, maybe not on a materialistic level, but on a soul level, on
Hmm.
mental, emotional levels. It'll freaking fuck you up,
Yeah.
and just seeing how it freaking ruins how it ruined two of my relationships, the two relationships I had when I was in active drug addiction, also when I was addicted to porn, like that, that, I mean, it affects every other aspect of your life because if your relationships with your significant others are not on point, then that's going to, kind of ripple effect outwards or whatever, right? And, that affects your intimacy and everything else. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think like my experience with it is more, I come from this, my core wound of not feeling good enough. So
mhm,
whenever I have a partner who is using that, it just makes me not feel good enough at all. And so I try to adopt this mindset that, everybody's going to have their preferences. It's just okay. And, to be more accepting of it. But something about it just kind of felt off to me,
mhm,
and I couldn't really put my finger on it until I started doing more work and learning more, doing a lot of workshops and stuff. It's like it's so deeply rooted in shame because like the science of it, like dopamine is like, we want to run away from anything. We're
yep,
gonna go to the first thing that's gonna take us out of that and make us feel good. Like we're gonna
yep,
search for that. So that's kind of on the outside looking at it. But as a woman, I had a partner that I thought was the only person that was for me. So it's like when I think I couldn't be intimate with anybody else because my intimacy was with him. That's
yeah.
the connection felt so soulful. It felt really right. It just felt like it was perfection, but it wasn't the same for on the other side. So it completely deteriorated the relationship because it does, like you said, it does affect intimacy. So when did you start realizing that this was impacting your relationships?
Well, I mean, at first, it wasn't like I grew up in the infancy of the internet, right? So, like, that was something like
Mm.
a lot of us when I was in college, when I was 19 or 20 years old, like, that was a big thing. Like, it was like, hey, man, get in here and check out this, this new video I found, and it's like, haha, kind of crazy thing like that. But, like, and then even when I was early on in my relationship, with, I guess we'll call her Jane maybe because I'm not going to say her real name
Yeah,
right.
her name is Jane. Jane's a
But
lovely lady.
so when like she was kind of into it too, so it was like a thing we would watch it together. And then it's like, hey, let's try to do this. Let's do, you know what I'm saying? So it introduced new things into our relationship and stuff, and it was fun and it was interesting or whatever, right? And then I ended up cheating on her one time. She found out, and then we worked through that, and that was fine. Like we were actually on a really good path after that, even. But like it started to be more of a problem, I think, when our addiction, when the drugs really started to take more of a hold of us, is when that also started to sink in too. Like because we were so busy being twacked out on our own things separately. Like I was constantly down in the basement in my workshop working on 1,000 projects and only finishing like 10 of you know, and she was upstairs doing, you know, whatever else and watching her housewife shows and like whatever stuff she was tweaking out on, like, you know, and then like I would come upstairs and would like try to be intimate with her, and she's like, you know, oh, what are you doing? You know, your hands are nasty. Get away from me. Blah blah blah, kind of whatever and stuff. And so then I would just be like, well, you know, fuck you. I'd go back downstairs or whatever, and then just pull it up on my phone, and you know what I'm saying, like find my intimacy that way. Really, I
Hmm.
guess is how it started, and like that started to be more and more of what was happening as opposed to us being intimate together. And
Yeah.
then when we actually were on the same page and did want to be intimate, like because of the porn and the way that it affects your mind and like the way you view sex and the way you view women and things like that, then I wasn't able to perform like I should have, would have, could have been, you know,
Yeah.
and that was really hurtful too. And you know, there were a lot of instances that we fought and argued about that. You know, like, are you out fucking another woman? You know, like, what's wrong? Am I not good enough for you? Da 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 da. You know, and that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, I'm not. But like, I didn't look at porn as being a form of cheating, but really it is. You know what I'm saying? Because you're lusting over a different woman other than the one that you're in the relationship with, and you know that has a big effect on the way we perform and everything too, you know,
Hmm.
because your mind is wandering elsewhere when you're trying to be focused on the one that's laying there in front of you, I guess is a good way
Yeah.
to put it. And so then that caused even more issues and stuff like that. Like I remember her a bunch of times, you know, being like, well, if you can't get hard and fuck me, then why don't you go watch your porn and, you know, jack off, blah blah blah, and kind of stuff. And that's hurtful in an ego sense, in a pride sense, for a man to be able to be told like that, you know. But at the same time, it's like we talked about previously, you know, like how much was that hurting her to say that to me, you
Hmm.
know, because she had to be hurting pretty bad too, because like you had said, you know, when the guy you were with was looking at porn and was not having you number one and focused on you all the time, he was out getting, you know, other pleasure and stuff from watching porn. Like that's degrading to a woman, right? And
Hmm.
I see that now looking back on all this stuff now that I've done all this work. So now it's like, okay, I understand why she said those hurtful things, because how hurt was she and how bad was she screaming and how much was her heart broken. You know what I'm saying? To be able to have to say something mean like that, lashing out because I
Yeah.
was not where like I should have been.
Yeah. I think it's really incredible that you have this ability to to look and see how someone else's experience was. I know it's like it's called empathy, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's a different kind of empathy than just like acknowledging. You're actually saying this is how this affected her. Whether she's right or not, it's not about that. It is about what she was feeling, and to be able to look at it from that perspective instead of only you. I think that's beautiful that you're able to have that distinction. I don't, and I want to give you some flowers for that because I don't think a lot of people understand for someone to get to that perspective. That's a lot of accountability. That's a lot of self reflection. And it's not self reflection. It's not sounding like it's self reflection from blame or shame. It's a self reflection from ownership, which I think
Yeah,
is
for sure.
you know, and when so you're able to understand what how it could have felt for her, which is awesome. But I want to bring it back a little bit to you. What was happening within you? I feel like we all have unmet needs, and so to peel back the layer, like you were talking about earlier, what was it that you needed in those moments that you didn't know how to say?
let me go back to the healing and the accountability stuff
Oh
that you
yes,
touched
of course. Let
for that
me give you
because
some time.
it's because like that's what you're supposed to do though when you do this deep healing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to get that empathy and you're supposed to be able to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, you know, and kind of look at things from a different angle and you know, not make it always about me, like, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. And like actually think about the other person and like when you look at it on that deeper level and you're like, okay, how did that affect me? Like, yeah, okay, her words hurt me, blah blah blah. Like, but yeah, to sit and think what it's like for the other person to have to go through that and endure that. That's where the real accountability for me really comes into play because if you're just doing surface level stuff and you're just forgiving them for how they lashed out at you and for how they reacted to you, but you're not really peeling back the layers and actually looking at the actions that caused their reaction, then you're not really doing the full work. I mean, in my
Right.
opinion, you know what I'm saying? So, like, to be able to fully understand and to be able to grasp it and to be able to heal those parts of you, you have to be able to look and not only take accountability, but, you know, put yourself in their shoes. You know what I'm saying? And like, see, like, okay, now I know why they reacted to the things that I said or that I did because you know how would I be acting or how did I respond to their reactions, you know what I'm saying, like in that in the heat of the moment. So
Yeah.
all right, now ask your question again, please. Because
Well, now I wanna give you even more flowers because
okay,
that is definitely relational intelligence. It's one thing to say to look at just oh how I have been treated, but it's another to say, well, how is my behavior affecting somebody else? And so that's I love that. That's my jam right there. But yeah, the question is like in the moments, like what was happening inside of you that you didn't know how to, you didn't know have words for, or you didn't know how to explain.
I don't know really.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a lot of guilt and shame, really. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
I guess a part of me was feeling guilt and shame for cheating on her beforehand, and then the guilt and the shame associated with drug use and the isolation and things that that caused, and then even more guilt, shame, confusion, maybe even rejection from her when I would come upstairs and would try to be intimate. She'd be like, "Get your hands off me, you know, you're nasty, blah blah blah, whatever." Like it's just, I mean, really, that's all I can think of because I've looked back over my life and the past relationships, the other relationships that I'd had, and like none of them were really. That was really the first like toxic relationship outside of
Yeah.
with my baby's mama, like that I'd had. The other ones that I had like in high school and in college were, I mean, pretty. I mean, fairly healthy. They weren't toxic like to this level. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I asked because my in I I'm around a lot of sexual abuse, and a lot of men have also been sexually abused. But aside from that, the most of the time, whenever sexual abuse or molestation or anything like that happens, it happens at a very young age. So the
mm-hmm.
body is naturally responding to pleasure, and then if that pleasure is being given or a family member, or like there's so many
Yeah,
ways these things happen. It's
yeah,
like I don't know how to respond to this, but I feel good. So there's a shame of like I feel good because, but am I also participating? There's so much nuance that goes into it, and I also want to point out that in my experience, there's a lot of unwelcome touchings that's happened. And
mm-hmm.
so, getting older and wanting to be in a healthy relationship, I was also seeking that kind of like enthusiastic, unplanned, playful kind of intimacy with my
Mm-hmm.
partner. And that could be seen as like it could even be hyperactive sexuality or whatever
Mm-hmm.
labels we want to give it. But it's just like the experience of like, man, I felt good doing something and I should be ashamed of that because that's not right. But when we separate like the abuse from the feeling, now we're conditioned as adults to want to have these feelings. So when we're in romantic relationships and we're not getting it, I think it can be so easy to like try to seek it elsewhere. And
Mm-hmm.
pornography ends up being one of those outlets. But in the moment, like I never knew to tell my partner that I want to be sneaky because that's kind of how it felt, right? But we could be intentional about the sneaky, but maybe my partner feels like watching porn is his way of fulfilling that sneaky,
Yeah.
so to speak. So I just kind of like want to give a little context of like how that can spiral for everybody, and it could be in different situation. And most of the time when children are younger and children are in environments where they end up touching each other, now they grow up with, either if they're the ones that did the touching or they're the ones that were touched, it's a whole different dynamic to go into adulthood with as well. And for me, I see how pornography can stay in there, and how it can also affect connecting with someone, because if you're not facing that shame, it just goes right back into doing it under the table, so to speak, or
Yeah,
like, hiding and doing it.
yeah,
Yeah. Before I
and
ask any questions.
and that's a good thing too, like the sneaky aspect or whatever, like
Yeah.
being sneaky and kind of getting away with, because like when you're teenagers or you're young like that, it's like, oh, we're gonna sneak off and we're gonna go get a quickie in the car, like going into the dressing room at the
Yeah.
clothing store or whatever, you know what I mean, like, or like sneaking down here in the woods or something like that, like things that, well, I mean, you could do probably when we were growing up. You can't do that nowadays because you
Yeah.
know everybody has ring cameras and God knows what else. Like, but like or like you come home from school and like, oh wow, the parents aren't home, I'm saying, like, let's sneak in and get a quick, kind of thing like that.
Yeah.
That is kind of, I guess, yeah, I can see where that, and then the porn also fulfills that, like you were
Right.
saying. That can
Yeah.
that can be a big thing too. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah. What does intimacy look mean to you now?
It's not as physical, you know what I'm saying? Nowhere near as physical. It's more about like spiritual and soul, like mental and emotional connection and things like
Hmm.
that, because when you can sit in front of somebody and you can tell them your truth and you can show, if you're standing there in front of them like raw and unapologetic and you're like, this is my truth, this is what I've been through, like this is me without the mask, without any of the facade and stuff like that, and for them to be able to look at you and say, you're safe with me, that is intimacy to me. It's not so much about being physically intimate with somebody anymore. Like, that's always a plus, but to me, I think the emotional safety, the mental, and the spiritual connections and things like that are more important than the physical aspect.
Yeah. I think that enhances the physical aspect for sure.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, it adds intensity to it.
Yeah. We might have people who want to come for us, because a lot of people are they I don't want to shame people who watch pornography, like that's their thing, right? I just know from
Mhm.
speaking from my experience and hearing your experience, it doesn't necessarily, it can be done healthily or unhealthily, and we're kind of bringing light to the unhealthy aspect of this, so
Yeah,
to speak. Yeah. And I agree with that, the way you describe the physical, I mean, the intimacy, because I don't know, there's something really cool about, like you said, looking at someone in their eyes and know that whatever it is that I want to experience with you, it goes beyond just right, just like the quick dopamine hit. I care
yeah,
about your experience. I care about your heart. I care about how you feel connected to. I feel like that's a whole bubble of like love that is, you have to experience that to even know what that feels like.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, because like the physical attraction and the physical intimacy is going to wear out as you get older anyways, right? So you're going
Yeah.
to have, like, if you can't get along with somebody, and if you're not, I guess, what if you're not connected on a spiritual and on a mental and emotional level, if you can't agree on things and if you don't see each other being safe in that sense, then you're not going to be able to last, like, once the physical attraction and the physical aspect of your relationship is gone. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, we're all going to get to, like, I mean, maybe some people can keep doing that, you know what I'm saying? Like, well into their 70s or 80s, you know what I'm saying? But like at some point in time, like, that stuff's not going to work anymore. So you have to
Yeah.
be able to fall back on stuff. Even then, when it just because of life and the way raising a family and everything else gets in the way of all that stuff, you don't have time for the physical intimacy. But if you can still lay on the couch with your partner or be cuddled up in the bed, like just watching shows and just enjoying time being together with each other, like that's what matters, because that's what's going to help you continue to progress, you know what I'm saying, like, and to
Yeah.
continue on long term farther down the road, like,
Yeah. What would you want a woman to understand about a man that's having this experience?
with the porn
Pornography.
addiction
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I mean, that there's a lot of shame and guilt that we're already carrying around that we're not going to talk about. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, unless you're an emotionally mature man, but most of us are going to know, no, it's fine, you know, whatever. But like, there's a lot of shame and guilt that we already have. So like, shaming us more or trying to make us guilt trip and feel bad about it even more is not going to help the situation. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So just, you know, try and approach it as you would with any other problem in your relationship, kind of
Hmm.
as a team to try, especially if they're wanting to try and get better and they're trying to make the effort to it not be a factor in your relationship anymore, right? It's like
Yeah.
work with him instead of work against him. Be more, try and be more supportive and kind of like, hey, you know, we're going to figure this out together to where it's both of y'all versus the problem instead of you versus him versus the problem.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, like, okay, I'm going to react because I feel insecure, but I
Mm-hmm.
care about Andrew because Andrew, I know Andrew has had a life and I don't know what's going on why he could be addicted to this. However, it's affecting me. So me coming and saying, Andrew, I really want to have a deeper connection with you. And I feel like this is becoming a problem. I don't want to blame you. I want to understand what will
Yeah,
make you feel safe to approach that?
yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
there's other thing, you know what I'm saying, like you said before, if there's underlying issues, especially if a guy was molested, like if he was touched inappropriately or did
Yeah.
other kind of things that he had to endure earlier in his life that he's not disclosed with you, then that can also, you know what I'm saying, so like
Yeah.
unless you for sure, then you know, yeah, you don't try and, you know, throw them under the bus more than they already feel like they're thrown under the bus
Yeah.
themselves.
I kind of like, and this is a little bit off topic, but I think that whenever it comes to having those conversations, there's this moment where in between two people, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with inferiority and superiority complex.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes when we're in conversation, not you and I, but we in general are in
Mm,
conversation, the moment that we want to be right, that's when our superiority is taking over. The moment that we back away, that's when our
yeah.
inferiority is coming in. And so I think that when we notice that, okay, I'm speaking from a hurt place while it's okay for me to express my hurt, it doesn't help me to be in relational connection with the person in front of me if I'm coming more from a you are the problem for my hurt
Mm,
versus like I'm feeling hurt. How can we look at this in a way where this can bring us closer together rather
yeah.
than pushing us apart? And I think most of the time I find myself in times when I want to blame and I'm just like you and I'm using that you language. I know that I'm now
Mm,
blaming. How is that person receiving that you on the other side? Now, as a woman, I would say if you're feeling unfulfilled or not respected in your relationship or not considered or cared for, and it's because of pornography, of course you have every right to share that. But using
mm,
I statements is what's gonna bring you close. Is what's gonna bring me closer to anybody that I'm talking to, rather than
yeah.
making it about them. And you did a very good job explaining that, like the dynamic of like it's you fighting the thing together, not fighting each other.
Yeah. And that was something that I've learned and I've seen in a lot of articles. And, you know, you hear people talk about like that's really the way forward, like not just, I mean, yeah, in any kind of relationship with another person, like even if it's a friendship, like don't be pointing the finger at them and then pointing the finger at the situation, or don't be blaming, you know, trying to attack them and then you know, like figure it out together. Like, you know, because two minds are always better than one, right? And
Yeah.
when you're helping to carry that load as opposed to forcing the other person to carry it themselves, then
Right.
it's going to make a huge, you know what I'm saying, then it makes it lighter for everybody to carry, right? So
Yeah, for sure. What would you want a man to be honest about that he's hiding?
what would I like, what do you mean,
So
kind of?
the question was about prior was what would you want a woman to understand
Yeah,
about what a man is going through? So what would you want a man to be honest about in those situations that he might be, what could he possibly be hiding?
I mean, like be honest about stuff from their past, or
Anything in general. This is your way of connecting with the men who may be on either side of
I
it,
mean,
right?
if because if they've been abused, like that's really a touchy subject, you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
for those types of people. So like that
Yeah.
can be a little bit tricky. So I'm not going to tell you to do one thing or another. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
however safe you feel sharing that with somebody, and I guess really that depends on the relationship that you have with your significant other or with your wife or with whoever, you know what I'm saying? Like, however safe you feel that person is for you to bring that stuff up to,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. Like, because if you're, I mean, really, I guess if you're in a position you don't feel like you can be honest with them and they would receive that well, then maybe kind of question what you're doing there to begin with. Like, sort of, I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of like a catch 22 there. You know what I mean? Like, that's a hard place, but
I
you
think
know, I mean,
oh,
but like if your woman comes to you and expresses, you know what I'm saying? Just fuck, man. Honesty's the best policy. Like, yeah, it might hurt in the moment and it might suck for a while, but I mean, if she's willing to work with you, to work through it with you, then I mean, fuck, man, you got to be able to take your hand and walk through the fire together. I think, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I think that the both the situations for me probably could have turned out a little bit differently if it was like that. But you know, everything happens for a reason too. So
Yeah.
you know, and I'm actually glad that they didn't work out anyway. So,
Yeah.
but like you know, I mean, so yeah, for of course my situation was a lot different. It wasn't like a really healthy relationship that kind of fell by the wayside. There was a lot of other factors in that too. So
Yeah.
don't use me as like as like a placebo group or anything
Yeah,
like that.
no, 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 not at all. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just yeah, I mean, and just freaking admit to yourself first that you have the problem. Of course, like that's always the big first step is being able to admit, to be able to look at the person in the mirror and say, hey, you have a problem, and like we need to do something about this. Like we need to
Hmm.
figure out what our game plan is here or whatever, and then just kind of go from there.
How would a man know that they have a problem?
I mean, when you would rather watch porn than go have sex with your significant other, probably is a good indication, I would think. And like, if it's also affecting your performance in when you're trying to be intimate with your significant other, that's a big one too. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
because for me, it was like the watching porn is such a, I mean, it's okay, the physical aspect is the same, but like the whole reason of, and the way about it, like the cheap dopamine spikes and the way it makes you feel and the way it makes you view a woman is so far on the opposite side of the spectrum as to what true physical intimacy is and what sex is supposed to be, how God intended it to be between, you know, a man and a woman or whatever. Like, it's just, I mean, and when you're on that side of the spectrum and that's what you're lusting for, you know, that's really, yeah, that's more lust than it is intimacy, you know,
Hmm.
and that's not good. So like, fuck, I lost my train of thought here.
It's okay. Just, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying though, because it's not it's, I don't think it's a topic that's talked about a lot, and the people do
No,
who
it's
do,
not.
yeah.
And I was just talking about that last night actually at the men's thing that we had at church or whatever with two of the guys that do the Freedom Fight group, which is like a group for men that have porn addiction and things like that, that suffer with lust and porn addiction and stuff like that, or sexual abuse, whatever. Like, it actually, you know, we were talking about that because I was telling them about this interview I was doing tonight, and I told them, I said, you know, I said, because I think it's not a topic that enough, that a lot of men or anybody period is really talking about, is
Hmm.
the epidemic that porn addiction is in this country, and like how widespread it really is, and nobody knows it because it's not talked about enough because there's such a big stigma attached to it, right? So
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I've heard people say that, everybody can watch porn and it's not a bad thing. Like a lot, like
mhm.
I feel judged because I don't think it's stimulating. I'm more of an emotional person, so we need to
Yeah,
connect emotionally first before
well, I am
anything.
now, you know what I'm saying, for sure. But like back when I was young, you know what I'm saying, it's all about the physical attraction, you know what I'm saying, and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But now it's like I agree with you. Like, there needs
Mhm.
to be something more than just the physical chemistry and the physical attraction.
Mhm.
Like I was saying earlier, you know, that's only part of the equation. You know, if I can't connect with you on a soul level, if I can't connect and be intimate with you like mentally and stuff
Yeah.
like that, then there's no point in us
Yeah.
pursuing a relationship. Like, I'm not with that whole hookup culture kind of shit that's like big and, you know, that's like trending in the world right now. Like that, like I'm over that. I'm not freaking
Yeah.
19 or 20 years old anymore. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be 42 in a couple of weeks. I need more than that.
Yeah, it's time. It's time to have all of the things that we missed out on. The actual intimacy. Yeah, I
For
I
sure.
feel like guys in general have it harder because the question about like what would you want a man to be honest about, I think that there hasn't women, and this isn't, I don't think it's a gender thing. I honestly just believe we all have unmet needs. We don't know what they
Hmm.
are, and we expect another person to fulfill those needs
To be a
without.
mind reader,
Right, exactly. So most guys, when they are vulnerable and share what they're experiencing, they kind of get flack for it, or or the woman wants to, or and again, I don't want to gender it, but the other person wants to feel heard and feel seen. And
hmm
so that takes away from what he's sharing if he's sharing something vulnerable, and it takes away from all of the effort that he might be putting in. So it does, I hope that I'm seeing a lot more safe space for men. I would, my request is that they continue to do more of that emotionally holding space too, because on the flip side of it, and this isn't anything with the topic that we're talking about, I'm seeing a lot of guys now who are on the personal development journey are
hmm
wanting to feel seen and acknowledged for the work that they're doing, which is fantastic, but they're not able to receive it. It's like they're telling you who they are instead of being who they are. And that causes a
yeah,
little bit of a disconnection. So it's like there's a safety I feel like we can cultivate with partnership. So, not to put it into gender, where we learn what our emotional needs are. We think about how we can, and we experiment with how we can meet those needs for ourselves. And then we can communicate it with the people that we love and care about, especially our intimate partners, because then a man, I mean, have gone in in life right now, majority of men don't feel like they have a safe space to be able to
yeah, for
share.
sure.
And then when they do, there's a lot of women who are like ready
We
to
get torn
also.
down for it. Yeah,
Yes, and I don't think that that's like, we're not in an age now for that to be a thing. We have Men's Mental Health Month. Like, there's more
and we're actually
advocacy.
dead in the middle of it right now too. You know
Exactly.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah. So
Yeah, there's more spaces to create that. And I felt as a woman, it is also my relational responsibility to learn how to be able to communicate with a guy when he is vulnerable, and not just, I've taken
mhm.
that for granted. I had to lose it in order to understand how I could have appreciated, or how I can
Yeah,
appreciate it now. And I don't think that I don't, some experiences I don't think that we can get away from. We have to have them in order to have the lesson. But I also
hmm
think that if we know that we don't have emotional needs and we want to be curious and learn about that as we're in a relationship, it can have that safety. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be something that's so far apart from being in connection.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure it is. Hold on one second. I got to go get my charger. My fucking
Okay.
laptop. This laptop for forever, and I forgot how bad the battery is. So, yeah, and I'm not trying to have it cut out in the middle of our conversation. So,
I understand. Yeah. Well, I
all
think,
right.
yeah.
So, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, no. Please continue.
I was gonna, but yeah, like I mean, that is a big thing for us men is being able to have more safe spaces for stuff nowadays, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a good thing that we're actually starting to break down the stigma about a lot of these things, and like that's what working at the men's sober home this week and listening to some of the things that they're teaching them about emotional immaturity and how to be more emotionally mature and how to not be so not to be such like shoot from the hip kind of like knee jerk reaction and things like that, right? When they're faced with something that triggers them or that gets them angry or whatever. One of the guys was talking about, there was an issue that happened, something, and like he was about ready to just walk out and leave and just say fuck it and just leave. You know what I'm saying? But like he sat and he thought about it, and it was one of the other guys made him mad, made a comment something or whatever, and like he sat with it for a few minutes, and then he went and spoke to the guy, and they communicated about it, and you know what I'm saying, like they worked it out. And like before, you like he would probably just said fuck it and just pack the shit and just went on down the road like or
Yeah.
whatever. But like he said, he said how they're teaching me to like pause and like think about stuff. They he said they learned a thing in a meeting the other day about like when you're faced with a situation. They said usually your first response is a wrong answer. Most of the time your second response is a wrong answer. But the more responses you start coming up with, the better those answers and those responses are going to be. And then when you get to, it might be three or four responses are like, nope, that's the wrong answer. Nope, that's the wrong answer. But eventually you're going to be like, okay, that's what I need to do, because you're going to figure it out, and it's going to, maybe not the correct thing to do, but it's not going to be the because a lot of times when we have problems, right, our first thing is that first reaction. And if you don't know how to respond versus react, then that's always going to keep you stuck in those negative loops, right?
Yeah.
But like once you learn how to respond to a situation or to a trigger instead of react, that's when you start to take your power back, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't give it to whatever thing or person or whatever it is, the external, god, what's the word I'm looking for here, the
Like the
damn it,
external validation from someone else.
no, the external, it's not a factor, but it's like something like, I don't know. But anyways, like whatever the external thing is that's out
Mhm.
there, that triggers you, like
Yeah.
you have you have those few seconds or whatever, even a split second reaction. Like, are you gonna react or are you gonna respond? And when you react, you're giving power to that thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
opposed to if you respond, then that's you taking the power and deciding how you're going to react to it. And to
Exactly.
hear these guys talk about that, and they're not even 90 days clean, like that's some pretty powerful
That's
shit.
powerful. I love
but
that.
but
Yeah.
but, but those are great tools that we as men need to have in our toolboxes of personal development, to
Right.
help us be able to progress, what I'm saying, like farther in life, and to work in all of our relationships, not just intimate and not just in relationships with our significant others, but with our kids, with our coworkers, with our friends, or whoever it is, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, and I like that. I really, really like that you guys are there's more education around it, but also there's more of a
Yeah.
willingness to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
because I think no matter what, the education and all of it is always there. It's just not a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people were talking about it. Now we have more people are talking about it, and it's not being done. I love that it's being recognized more outside of a shame-based personal motivation
Mm-hmm.
thing, and more like an internal, like, what is it that we needed, or what is it that we as human beings, or a man and a woman, need in order to have a more fulfilling life, right?
For sure.
Yeah. So before we wrap up on this lovely conversation, is there anything that you just, that we haven't covered, something that you're really passionate about, that you want people to know more about that I didn't ask? Yeah, anything?
I mean, just like I'd said before, like this is the most vulnerable I think that I've been, and I told you that when we did our pre-call, like
Yeah.
like a month ago. Like, but I would like encourage, like, to start talking about stuff like this, because to me, like I told you the last time when our first conversation, like that was really healing, just being able to get all that out into the open, because it's nothing that I'd ever shared before, outside
Mm-hmm.
of like maybe one or two other people, and most of them were in my small group at Celebrate Recovery or whatever. So
Yeah.
be able to put things out like that into the open, is it's like just going like, man,
Yeah.
that's off your shoulders and stuff, you know what I'm saying, like
Mm-hmm.
you can breathe, your sleep better, you know what I mean, like because you're letting go of all this stuff that you've been carrying around, and like we're not meant to carry all this shit around with us all the
Mm-hmm.
time, like really not, and that was one of the biggest things that I had to come to grips with whenever I first got clean, was learning how to truly let go of all the shit that I've been carrying around for all those years, you know what I'm saying, and this is just one more thing, and it's just more weight that falls off my shoulders. So I walk around a lot lighter now, because I don't have all that in my head constantly, like yapping, and in my ears all the time, like, you know what I'm saying. So like to be able to put this out there is just like, that's more parts of me are being healed that I
Yeah.
didn't even know that really needed healing either. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's an amazing experience, and yeah, like I told the guys at the event last night, like this is a conversation that needs to happen more. And I love to talk, so why not? Like and at this point, there's no shame in my game, really. Like, you know what I'm saying, I'm learning about accountability, and have been learning about accountability since I got clean. So to be able to take accountability for this, and then be, and that's another thing we talk about a lot in recovery and in the programs, is like, if you want to keep your sobriety, if you want to keep the things that you've gained from getting clean and from finding recovery, you have to be willing to give those away.
Mm-hmm.
When we give them away, then we're giving that to somebody else, and that in turn it comes back to us as well, right? So like then that goes along with the whole universe, the laws of the universe thing kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Cause and effect.
what you put out comes back to you.
Yeah.
So that's another, big thing here. So like just, yeah, it's amazing, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a great thing. Like your experience, your what I'm experiencing is that you have had a felt experience. You're sharing more
Hmm.
felt experience. You're giving yourself more felt experiences,
Yeah,
which you can't just get cognitively. You can understand something, but unless you really go inward and feel it and sit with it and let it
yeah,
tell you what it need to, and you understand how valuable it is for another person to have a felt experience, so you're not
yeah,
taking your wisdom and saying, hey, don't feel your feelings or don't do this. You're saying, go and do it. Feel it out.
yeah.
Talk about it. Be amongst it. Like, let it give you what it needs to give you. So I
You have
appreciate
to.
that. Mm-hmm.
You Thank you. And I mean, you
Yeah.
have to be able to do that to be able to properly heal and to be able to properly do the work. You've got to be willing to reach in to the, what I'm saying, to open those wounds or whatever, and like reach in there and pull out all that ugly nasty stuff that's in there. You know what I'm saying? No matter how bad it hurts, because once you do that and you get that out, then you can start to heal, and the scars might still be there, but they're going to heal back a lot healthier that way than they will if you just leave all that in there to fester up. You know what I'm saying? Like I did for a lot of years until our last conversation, and when I started talking about it at CR and stuff now, like being able to talk about these things is healing those parts of me, that instead of stuffing it down and just letting it continue to fester underneath the surface, because if you don't deal with it, then it's going to come bubbling back up to the surface, and it's going to start affecting you in one or all areas of your life, whether that's your friendships, relationships with your family, or if it's relationships with a significant other or whatever. Like it's going to show through somewhere, if you
Yeah.
don't deal with it. And that's been my lesson in the 28 months I've been in recovery. So like, why not just get it out into the open and get it over with, so then the sun can, then you can start being able to heal from it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think I had to learn over the past couple of years is that it's no longer about I want this back or I need to get this. It's about, well, how can I heal from this? And that comes with so
Mm-hmm.
much more grace and compassion and forgiveness. But all and like, it's like a lot of, I don't know how people live with regret. Like to me, regret is so it has a great lesson in it, and
Yeah,
everybody's gonna have a good lesson. But I think when we have regrets and we just kind of like, okay, well, that didn't work out and we're trying so hard to move away from it rather than embracing, like, okay, why didn't it work out? Is there a possibility to do this differently, instead of like, just sitting in regret all the time? And
yeah,
I think regret and remorse really gave me redemption, and in order for me to do that, I had to sit with it and I had to feel it out, and I had to be able to talk about it with people who can hold that space as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, and that's another big one. Is I always before I mean, and even in the first few months of me being clean, like I had to learn how to do that as well. Like not for me to be able to look back at all the fucked up shit that I've done in my life, and the fucked up things that I've put my kids through and my family through, and other people around me, like to be able to look back and not constantly beat myself up for it, like, Andrew, you're a fucking dumbass, I can't believe you did that, blah 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 blah, like, but to look back and say, hey, you were doing the best you could with what you had and what you knew at the time, like it's okay, what I'm saying, to be able to look, to go back, I guess, and revisit those past versions of myself and just kind of pat them on the back and be like, hey, it's okay now, you know what I mean, kind of thing, and to be able to look back and realize the lessons learned versus them being just a bunch of screw ups and a bunch of things that I did wrong in my life. Like, be able to look back and look at the lessons and what they were trying to teach me and what I can pull from them. You know, that's yeah. I mean, that helps keep you sane, number one, and also, but yeah, I mean, regret can be a great teacher. It's great to turn around and look back from where you've came from, but you don't go there and stay for a long time. It's
That's
okay to
right.
go visit, and say hello, you know what I'm saying, and maybe see things from a different light or from a different perspective. But then you take those lessons with you and you come back to the present and you just
Hmm.
carry it forward with you instead of constantly living in that shame and the guilt and the grief and resentment and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. And to our listeners, if this anything that we shared makes you want to like, oh my God, I got to talk to Andrew, you better do it because he's the dude. And
Thank you very much.
join our conversation, share it with somebody. And I always like to say, if you're gonna share, if you thought about somebody right away, share it right away. It doesn't matter what time it is because
Hmm.
the minute we say we're gonna do it tomorrow, we set ourselves up for
You always
failure right there.
forget,
Yeah, exactly.
especially if you're like me, being ADHD. Yeah, I say, okay, I'm going to send it to that person tomorrow, and then tomorrow I completely forget about it.
I guess 100 thing comes up and then it all goes away. Well, Andrew, thank you so much again for joining us, and I know that we have
Thank
more
you for
time
having me. I
together.
greatly appreciate it.
Yes, I'm glad. All right, and we will see you on the next episode.